Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So welcome friends to this Wednesday evening Sutta study class. And the Sutta that we're going to study, actually we're trying to get through two of them, perhaps a third one, on the topic of Kamma. So these two suttas, the Culakammavibanga Sutta and the Mahakammavibanga Sutta. So these are two suttas that the Buddha gave in expounding certain aspects of the law of karma and how they're also connected with the rebirth. So karma and rebirth normally go hand in hand, but even if there wasn't rebirth, there's still karma effective and working in this life, and the effects of those can also be seen. So if people have doubts about the the lifetime to lifetime rebirth, then you can we interpret that rebirth to be the moment to moment rebirth. So even after some actions, 1 minute later you're already reborn several times, according to moment rebirth. And so on. So anyway, this Culakammavibanga Sutta, this is a Brahmin student named Subba came to the Buddha to ask him some questions about the Kamma. And this Subba, his father was named Todya, and there's an interesting little a story from the commentaries that talks about the father of Subba. So it seems that his father, who died, was now reborn as a dog in the same house that he had lived in. And it seemed that when the father, Todya, before he died in the last lifetime, had buried some treasure in the backyard. And so he had so much greed and attachment, and maybe he was stingy and so on. So when he died, he was reborn as a dog in the same house, so he could go dig up the treasure. Of course, now as a dog, he couldn't really enjoy the treasure. So I don't know if Subba knew this or not, but he might have known this. The Buddha might have told him. But anyway, so the Subba comes to ask the Buddha questions about the Kamma. So it's just an interesting little side light about the Kamma and its effects, the strong desires that we have from a previous life. If they're still very strong, then there's a good chance that one will be reborn in order to meet with that issue concerning that desire, whether it's to be a painful encounter or not. Anyway, so Subba comes to the Buddha and asks the Buddha, Master Gautama, what is the cause and condition while human beings are seen to be inferior and superior. For people are seen to be short-lived and long-lived, sickly and healthy, ugly and beautiful, uninfluential and influential, poor and rich, low-born or high-born. That's if you're, in India where there's the caste system and so on. Unwise or wise, foolish or the wise. What is the cause and condition, Master Gautama, why human beings are seen to be inferior and superior? So you can see these things even today, right? We see that some people are short-lived, others long-lived. Some people are sickly much of their life. Others seem to be healthy. Others are endowed with, relative beauty, and others maybe not so. Some are born with low intelligence or high intelligence. So, we see these things even today, not only at the time of the Buddha. And then the Buddha answers him. He said, student, that means this Subha, beings are owners of their actions, heirs of their actions, have their actions as their refuge. It is action that distinguishes beings as inferior or superior. And then Subha, he couldn't understand the meaning of that. What the Buddha spoke in brief, but didn't expound the details. So he asked the Buddha if he would please explain more in detail the meaning of his statement about beings are owners of their karma, heirs of their karma, born according to their karma, and so on. So then he explains it this way. Here, student, some man or woman kills living beings and is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. Because of performing and undertaking such action, on the death of the body, he reappears or is reborn in a state of deprivation, in an unhappy destination. Now, these states of deprivation or unhappy destinations are explained as being born in the animal realm, or being born as a hungry ghost, or being born in the various realms of hells, which are said to be 16 hot and 16 cold ones, and the realm of the fighting demons. So, but if that same person who does those evil things is not reborn in one of those woeful states, but instead he happens to get born again as a human being, then wherever he is reborn in the human realm, he is short-lived. That means he doesn't live long. He dies in his youth, or at some stage, but before reaching older age. This is the way, student, that leads to short life. Namely, one kills living beings and is murderous, bloody-handed, given to blows and violence, merciless to living beings. And then he says, but here some man or woman, he doesn't do any of those evil actions, he doesn't kill, and he abides compassionate to all living beings. But because of performing and undertaking such action, on his death, they're reborn in a happy destination, even in the heavenly worlds. But if they're not born in the heavenly worlds and they're born again as a human being, then wherever they are reborn, they have a long life. This is the way that leads to long life, namely having refrained from killing living beings in the past and abiding with kindness and compassionate to all living beings. That's the way to having a long life. And then he goes on to say, somebody may not be killing, but they're given to, they have a habit of injuring people, like maybe getting in fights and using clods or sticks and kind of just mean and, likes to harm, injure people, but not really killing them. But even with that, after death, they may reappear in a state of deprivation. But if they come back to the human realm, then wherever they are born, they are sickly. That means they have plagued with a lot of sickness and body problems much of their life. This is the way, student, that leads to sickliness. Namely, one is giving to injuring living beings with the hand, a clod, with a stick, and so on. But then there's some other person who is not even injuring any living beings. And because they don't injure any living beings, on their death, they arise in a happy destination. And he says, this is the way that leads to health. If they're born as a human being, they are born with health. So that's the way to having health, is not to injure other living beings. And then he goes on to state, some person is angry and irritable character. Even when criticized a little, he is offended, becomes angry, hostile, resentful, and displays anger and hate and bitterness. Because of performing and undertaking such action, he reappears after death in a state of deprivation or state of woe. But if he comes back to the human state, wherever they are reborn, they are ugly. So this is the way, student, that leads to ugliness. Namely, one is of an angry and irritable character and displays anger, hate, and bitterness. But here some man or woman is not angry and irritable. And even when criticized, they're not offended. They do not become angry, hostile, resentful, do not display anger and hate and bitterness. Because of such action, he appears after death in a happy destination. But if he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is born, he is or she is of a beautiful form. So this is the way to ugliness, is by having a lot of hatred and resentment and anger in the future. And the way to attain beauty is by not having anger and irritability. And then he goes on to talk about enviness. Some person is envious, one who envies, resents, and begrudges the gains, honor, respect, reverence, and veneration received by others. And because of that enviness, he reappears in a state of deprivation, or if he is born again as a human being, wherever he is born, he will become uninfluential. That means he won't have much influence on people, or they won't listen to him. This is the way that leads to being uninfluential, namely one is envious towards the gains of others and doesn't respect or pay salutations to people worthy of that. But some person who is not envious, who does not envy, resent, or begrudge the gains, honor, respect, because of such wholesome behavior, he reappears in a happy destination. like a heaven world. But if he comes back as a human being, wherever they are reborn, they'll become influential. They'll have a lot of influence on others. People will listen to them, and so on. That is due to not being envious. And then he goes on to, like, people practicing dana and generosity. Here some man or woman does not give food, drink, clothing, garlands, giving the needful for charity, or doesn't support the monks or Brahmins because of being so stingy and not practicing giving. They reappear in a state of deprivation. But if they come back to the human state, wherever they are reborn, they'll become poor because they have not practiced generosity and giving. This is the way that leads to poverty, namely one does not give food and lamps and beds, or just basically, giving, supporting monks or Brahmins or just people in general, not practicing generosity, being stingy and miserly. But people who do practice generosity and are freely giving and generous, they're reborn in a happy destination, or even a heaven worlds, or if they're born as a human being, that's the way it leads to wealth. So like that, he goes through several of these, more of these, basically the certain types of actions, like the negative karmic actions, and the type of rebirths. Either one can be reborn in a heavenly world, or a state of happiness, or if they're born again as a human being, they will have those good qualities. They'll have received the similar effects of the good deeds that they have done. They'll receive that back. And in the same way, if people break the precepts and are, breaking all the precepts quite a lot and living that way, then if they're not born in a state of deprivation, if they're born as a human, then they'll have these negative sort of qualities that were mentioned. So this is the way that karma, that cause and effect happens. But even if you're not, if a person doesn't believe in being born from life to life, even the effects within this lifetime of, let's say, living in those ways, one will receive the certain painful effects of that, and or the good qualities receive the good effects of that. So he sums it up. Thus, student, the way that leads to short life makes people short-lived. The way that leads to long life makes people long-lived. The way that leads to sickliness makes people sickly. The way that leads to health makes people healthy. The way that leads to ugliness makes people ugly. The way that leads to beauty makes people beautiful. The way that leads to being uninfluential makes people uninfluential. The way that leads to being influential makes people influential. The way that leads to poverty makes people poor. The way that leads to wealth makes people wealthy. The way that leads to low birth makes people low-born. The way that leads to high birth makes people high-born. The way that leads to foolishness or stupidity makes people stupid or foolish. The way that leads to wisdom makes people wise. So then he repeats again, beings are owners of their actions. student heirs of their actions. They originate from their actions, are bound to their actions, have their actions as their refuge. It is actions that distinguishes beings as inferior or superior. Now, this comes to a kind of a, you could say, a controversial point these days in the modern world, where people are saying all people are born equal. Well, in fact, according to the law of karma, people are not born equal. Now, in the ultimate sense, yes, people should be born equal, but because of the law of karma, there are these natural laws of karma that cause inequality in people. Whether you like it or not, that is how it is according to the law of karma. And karma makes the most sense. And you could say it's also genetics has something to do with it too, because the way that leads to short life makes people short-lived. So by repeating the same actions over and over again, that can, in a certain way, even change some aspects of genetics, or would be passed on to a next life in that way. So we could say it's in the genes, or you're born with people who are of similar qualities, so that you inherit the genes that you need also to work out the previous karma that one had accumulated. Of course, people don't know that, but that's what people are up against. And the law of karma, to me, is what makes more sense than these other ideas of just everything happens by chance, or there's some supreme being is making people like this or like that. No, the law of karma is explains perfectly the differences between people. Now, people don't want to accept it, of course, but there's no other really better way of explaining the differences between beings. So after the Buddha explained all that, this Subba said to the Buddha, "Magnificent Master Gotama, magnificent Master Gotama. Master Gotama has made the Dhamma clear in many ways, as though he were turning upright what had been overturned, revealing what was hidden, showing the way to one who was lost, or holding up a lamp in the dark for those with eyesight to see forms. I go to Master Gotama for refuge, and to the Dhamma and to the Sangha for refuge. Let Master Gotama remember me as a lay follower who has gone to him for refuge for life." So that was the lesser discourse on the exposition of Kamma. And now we're going to go on to the greater exposition of action, the Mahakammavibanga Sutta. And this winds up to be a kind of a discussion amongst several different people. So it starts out between a young monk named Samidi, who had only been a couple years as a monk studying under the Buddha. And then a wanderer, one of these kind of he's not a Buddhist monk, follower of the Buddha, but he follows some of these other ascetic teachers of the time. And they call them wanderers. So they just wander around meeting people and getting into arguments and discussions about their beliefs and so on. And then also it involved Ananda, the Buddha's disciple, and the Buddha. So this Samidi goes over to this wanderer, Potaliputta, and has some discussion with him. And this Potaliputta knows that this Samidi is a disciple of the Buddha. So he's telling friend this Samiti, I heard and learned this from the recluse Gautama's own lips. Bodily action is vain, verbal action is vain, only mental action is real. And there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all. So this is what this wonder, he's attributing these statements to the Buddha. So Samiti replies to him and says, do not say so, friend. Do not misrepresent the Buddha. It is not good to misrepresent the Blessed One. The Blessed One would not speak like this. Bodily action is vain, verbal action is vain, only mental action is real. But friend, there is that attainment on entering which one does not feel anything at all. So this was Samiti's own, he's saying that there's some attainment on which one does not feel anything at all. And then the Spotali-Putta, asks him, how long have you been a monk? And Samiti says, not very long, just 3 years. And then he says, well, what shall we say to the elder monks when a young monk thinks the teacher is to be defended like this? Friend Samiti, having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, and mind, what does one feel? Anyway, so Samiti neither approved nor disapproved and decided to go tell Ananda about this. Because a lot of times when young monks got into some discussion with wanderers that they didn't feel comfortable with, they used to go and tell either Ananda or the Buddha, look, we had this discussion, and the Buddha then would comment on it. So he told Ananda what had happened, and Ananda said, oh, we better go tell this to the Buddha. And the Buddha will answer us, and we should bear it in mind. So they went to the Buddha, and Ananda told the Buddha the whole conversation, what had gone on. And this becomes interesting now. Said when Ananda had finished telling the Buddha what had happened, the Buddha replies to Ananda, Ananda, I do not even ever recall ever having seen this wanderer Patali-Putta. So how could there have been this conversation that he heard me saying? Though the wanderer Patali-Putta's question should have been analyzed before being answered, this misguided monk Samiti, this young monk Samiti, answered it only one-sidedly. So when Patali-Putta asked Samiti these questions, he didn't, he wasn't versed enough in the Dhamma to really consider different aspects of the question. So he just answered what kind of came off the top of his head, what he might have remembered the Buddha talking before. And then it gets even more interesting. More monks butt into the conversation. And then after the Buddha told, Ananda about, kind of castigating Samiti about not answering the question properly, another monk named Udayan said to the Buddha, Venerable Sir, perhaps the Venerable Samiti spoke thus about the principle, whatever is felt is included in suffering. So now Udayan is butting in and giving his own commentary. And so the Buddha replies to him. It's very interesting. Then the Buddha addressed the Venerable Ananda. See, Ananda, how this misguided man Udayan interferes. I knew that this misguided man Udayan would unduly interfere right now. From the start, the wanderer Patali-Putta had asked about the 3 kinds of feeling. this misguided Samiti would have answered the wanderer Potaliputra rightly if he would have said, Potaliputra, having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as pleasant, one feels pleasure. Having done an intentional action by way of body, speech, or mind, whose result is to be felt as painful, one feels pain. Having done an intentional action whose result is to be neither painful nor pleasure, one will feel neither painful or pleasure. But who are these foolish, thoughtful wanderers of other sects that they could understand the Tathagata's great exposition of action? You should listen, Ananda, to the Buddha, the Tathagata, as he expounds a great exposition of action. And Ananda says, this is the time, Blessed One. This is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to expound the great exposition of action. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the bhikkhus will remember it. And then he talks about, but that last part was interesting because it shows that, these things happen even today, doesn't it? Two people are having a conversation. Somebody overhears a couple words and it butts into the conversation, wants to add their 2 cents worth, having not heard the whole thing. And then somebody else hears that and then butts in too. So you could see that the Buddha had to deal with the same kind of things that happen today with people, butting into conversations like they know the answer, or, somebody's trying to explain something to somebody else butts in and tries to take it in different directions. So it's interesting how the Buddha also kind of rebuked them. Anyway, so the Buddha is telling Ananda, he says, there are these 4 kinds of persons to be found in existing in the world. I'm going to kind of just summarize these paragraphs. What for? What are the 4 kinds of people? Here, one person kills living beings, basically breaks all the 5 precepts, all the 8 Fold Path precepts, speaks falsehoods, gossips, has covetousness, ill will, wrong views, and after death, they're born in an unhappy destination because of the Kamma. But here, the same person kills living beings, holds wrong views, and after death, they reappear in a happy destination, even the heavenly world. So, some people who are use the term, evildoers, in this life, but they're born in heavenly world's happy destination. But in some so one kind of person is the person who breaks all the precepts, will be reborn in a woeful state, an unhappy destination. But the same person could be born in a happy destination regardless to the negative Kamma. And then so that's the second type of person. Third type of person is one who follows all the precepts, abstains from killing, stealing, lying, and all that, and holds right view. And after death, they reappear in a state of deprivation. So even though a person might practice the precepts, they're a follower of the Buddha, if they haven't attained Sotapanna at least, they could still be born in a state of deprivation or even in hell. that's because of a previous karma from even a previous life that kind of took effect over this present life's good karma and has its results. We'll see that in a bit. So these are those four situations. A person is an evildoer and is born in the woeful states. A person is an evildoer, but in spite of that is born in a happy destination or with good qualities. And then there's the person who does good, live by the precepts, is kind and compassionate, but they're born in a state of woe in the next life, an animal or even hell. But there's the person who does the good, follows the precepts in this life, and they're born in the next life in the happy destinations, the heavenly worlds, and so on. And then he explains how this could happen. He explains that there's certain people, including the Buddha, who had psychic power, and they can read the minds of others, and they can also see how people are being reborn according to their karma. So this kind of a person, when their mind is concentrated with the divine eye, which is purified and surpasses the human, he sees this person who kills living beings and is born in a state of deprivation. And then he says, all people who kill, steal, lie, cheat, break the precepts, all people will be born in a deprivation. And the Buddha says, no, not necessarily. And another person will see that person, that they had done good things in the previous life. And so basically, it's explaining that, how, during our life, we've all done maybe things that were not cool, right? When we were younger, broke the precepts and the things like that. But we've also done good things. And we carry this kind of, both good and bad karma with us. And at times, those can take place over. So you might have had a good karma to be born as a human being, but because of some bad karma that you also had, you might be born as a human being in those depraved states, as we saw in the first sutta. And so that's why it's not necessarily a one-way street, that, the effects of what you do in this life could take effect even 2 or 3 lifetimes in the future, not necessarily just the next lifetime also. But, there's always this mixture of them. And so then, after explaining all that, I'm not going to read all of it because it takes too long. But then the Buddha says, Ananda, when a recluse or Brahmin says, indeed there are evil actions, there's the result of misconduct, I grant him this. I say, yes, that's also true. But when he says, all people who do evil actions will be reborn in a state of deprivation, I do not grant him this. Because he sees that there's other aspects of karma working. So basically he's agreeing that yes, people are reborn in suffering because of their deeds, but not everybody who does evil deeds is immediately reborn in suffering. But there are some people that, believe that those effects are immediate or follow the lifetime. So if a person does good all this lifetime, yes, they'll be born in happy states or with good qualities and so on. But not everyone may do that, because they might have other bad karma that could interfere with that. So the Buddha is trying to clarify that, and he's not agreeing with the statements that everybody who does this, that's going to happen to them. So the Buddha says, well, yes, it may happen or it may not happen because of other things. So and then at the end, he kind of sums it up. Thus, Ananda, there is action that is incapable and appears incapable. That means there's action that is evil and appears to be evil. There is action that is evil and appears to be capable. That means if people are evildoers, but they seem to be getting away with it and having good results, even having done the evil. Or there's action that is good and appears good, that has wholesome actions, but there's also actions that are good that appear to be incapable. That means appear to be giving problems. Like, there's a lot of people who are kind and compassionate and lead, simple lives, but still suffering happens to them too. Misfortunes happen to them. So anyway, this is what the Buddha said, and the monks were delighted in what the Buddha's words. So that was the lesser and greater exposition of Kamma, as explained by the Buddha. Now modern interpreters and people, explain Kamma in many different ways. Usually they don't even talk about the rebirth, but even in this lifetime itself, we can see those actions. Now, as I mentioned before, we still have a few minutes, so that we'd have a little fun, although you may not think it's fun, you may think that's horrible. But this is a sutta that also explains this, the effects of our karma, in the next life. So this is from the Samyutta Nikaya, and there was a monk named Lakhana, and I'm going to read this. Well, I'll give a little explanation. So this Venerable Lakhana, he didn't have any psychic powers, and he was walking with Mahakammavibanga, who had the psychic power. That means Moggallana could see how people were being reborn according to the Kamma, and he could see like ghosts flying through the air and stuff like that, and know what they had done in the previous life to get reborn. So I'm just going to read this because it's kind of interesting. So the Venerable Lakhana and the Venerable Mahakammavibanga were dwelling on the mountain Vulture's Peak. Then in the morning, the Venerable Moggallana dressed and took his bowl and went to this Lakhana, monk Lakhana, and said, "Come, let's go into the village, Rajgir, to collect alms." And Lakhana said, "All right, friend." So they were walking down Vulture's Peak, and then while they were walking, Lakhana noticed that Moggallana was kind of giving a smile, like something like that, He saw the smile on Moggallana's face. And the Lakhana said to him, "For what reason, friend Moggallana, did you display a smile? Because normally arahants and so on are not, kind of always smiling and or laughing and or expressing emotion, because they have become freed from all of that. But he had this smile. So Moggallana replies, this is not the time for that question, friend. Ask me that question when we're in front of the Buddha himself. So next time we go and see the Buddha together, you ask him this question, or you tell him this, what had happened. So later on in the day, having finished their alms, they went to see the Buddha. And the Venerable Lakhana said to Moggallana, or basically they told the Buddha what had happened. When we were walking down from Mount Vulture Peak, Moggallana displayed a smile in a certain place. For what reason, Moggallana, did you display that smile? So they told the Buddha that. And then, now because they're in front of the Buddha, Moggallana answers why he did that. Here, friend, as I was coming down from Vulture Peak, I saw a skeleton moving through the air. Vultures, crows, and hawks were following the skeleton in hot pursuit and were pecking at it between the ribs, stabbing it and tearing it apart while it uttered cries of pain. It occurred to me, it is wonderful indeed. It is amazing indeed that there could be such a thing, that there could be such a being, that there could be such a spirit, that there could be such a form of individual existence. And then the Buddha addressed the monks. Monks, there are disciples who dwell having gotten this type of psychic power. And in the past, monks, I too saw these beings, the pretas. But I did not speak about it because people would not believe them. But if there's more than one person or several people who have this ability to see it, then likely then people may not laugh at them so much. They might think, oh, why can't I see it? Maybe I better meditate more. And then the Buddha told him that person, that skeleton that was seen by Moggallana, this person used to be a cattle butcher in this same town of Rajgir. And because he was a cattle butcher most of his life, he had been reborn in hell for many years. And as a result of the Kamma, after he left hell, he was reborn as a preta, or in this kind of existence as a skeleton, being pecked at by these other birds and animals. And then there's about 8 or 10 different examples of this. Each time Moggallana smiled and Lakhana, or maybe it was somebody else, said, why did you smile? And he said, well, I saw a person buried neck deep in a pit, a dung pit. Can you imagine? You're buried all the way sunk into a pit of dung, horse manure and so on. And was eating, that's all you could get to eat, was eating the dung with both hands. He saw that in this vision. He said, that person had committed adultery many times in his past life. Now, I know people may not like to hear that, and please don't get offended. I'm just saying these are what's believed in the suttas, and that it well maybe could be. So anyway, and there's a bunch of different examples. I'm not going to go through them all, but if you're interested, you can look that up in the Samyutta Nikaya. That's in the Nidana Vagga, and you just have to look up the Lakhana Samyutta in that. It's just not easy to say which page and so on. But so, in those examples, the rebirth from lifetime to lifetime is a definite occurrence. There's a lot of people that like to say these days, popular teachers, that the Buddha didn't believe in rebirth. It was all metaphorical. Well, if there's so many sutras that talk about this, and these are not metaphorical. People can, of course, argue that, but again, but these are, anyway, these are just examples that, our actions produce the results, and those negative, unskillful actions lead to, painful effects, and the wholesome effects lead to good, happy effects. But it's not a direct exchange because of this very profound nature of the Kamma. That's why even a person could be reborn as a Sotapanna. A person could attain the state of extreme interest in this life, but in the next, if they were very negligent, they could be born again as a human being, but with not such good conditions, and may not even, make progress in the next life in the Dhamma for some reason, because of some heavy negative karma that kind of intervened. But as they say, so even a Sotapanna, if they were negligent or had lots of karma to work through, it could take them 7 lifetimes before they, go through the other 3 stages. Okay, so, having said all that, let's see if there's any, if anybody had any questions based on any of that, questions about this Kamma. So I guess people have already read this chat, but it says, when one of my children was born, we spent a couple months in the hospital, NICU. I'm not sure what that is, but maybe. It was not unusual for a newborn child to not make it through the night. I guess that's intensive care. Do you feel this is related to karma, or could it be the manifestation of a once returner? Well, I would say it's probably the result of Kamma. But even, that even a once returner is experiencing the result of his past karma too, to be born as a once returner. But a once returner is not born again as a human being. They're born in a human, they're born in a Suddhavasa. So that would not have pertained to somebody who had been a once returner in the life and they were reborn as a child. No, because once returners are not reborn again as human beings. So, yeah, it's karma of one kind or another. Like I said, maybe that person had, well, people don't like to hear it. So, but, if they had, been involved in killing and taking life and so on in a previous life, then that's what leads to a short life, as we just read in that sutta. Okay. Does the Abhidhamma detail the actions performed under certain mental states and how those actions cause or become conditions to future existence? Well, the mental states you perform karma of greed, hatred, and delusion, those are mental states, right? So all of our actions that we do are based on those mental states, and the mental states that are spin-offs of greed, hatred, and delusion. And, even mentally imbalanced people, that's the result of the past karma as well. And but even the suttas, don't worry about the Abhidhamma so much, I go by the sutras more than the Abhidhamma because everything is there. So it's more clear in the Abhidhamma makes it too complicated. It goes into too much complication to understand, but the way the Buddha explained it, as we just read in those sutras, it's more easy to understand. What can we do to purify our negative karma? Noble Eightfold Path, beginning with right view, right thought. You have to change the way you think and view the world and yourself. And, practicing sila, samadhi, and panya. That's the only way. People want some different way. No, there's not going to be any different way. And so it's all there. The whole teaching of the Buddha is about that. Is about purifying the negative karma. But we have to get a hold of our intentions. If you're not aware of the intention to commit the action, you won't be able to change the action and thus purify the karma. That's why the practice of meditation, developing mindfulness, as well as right understanding, again, right understanding, right mindfulness, and right effort, those three pillars of the Eightfold Path are the ways that you purify the karma. There's no other way. If you think of another way, let me know. If birth is the ultimate reason of suffering, does it make sense to have a baby? How does that relate to the fact that being birthed as a human being is considered a fortunate thing? Being born. Well, birth is due to Kamma. And yes, it's the ultimate cause of that was greed, hatred, and delusion accumulated. But as you start practicing Dhamma, the human birth is necessary really to practice Dhamma. So it's the best place to be born as a human being in order to practice the Dhamma. But as one practices, we have to, practice according to create the conditions that we're born in those fortunate circumstances. So does it make sense to have a baby? Yes, it makes sense to have a baby only if you're a Dharma practitioner. And you're going to be able to hopefully guide that baby, because Dharma practitioners, babies seeking birth, their karma will be attracted to Dharma practitioners with the hope that because of that, they might be able to then regain whatever practice they left off at in the previous life, like a Sotapanna. Their karma would probably be more attracted to parents who are practicing Dhamma, because that would allow for them to regain the connection to Dhamma at a younger age. So, and there's plenty of people that need to have a human birth to make advances in Dhamma. So yes, it makes sense to have a baby, but only if you're going to bring that baby up in a good environment. So, only for that reason it's good, not necessarily for just to populate the world necessarily, but to provide a good chance for those people to, make progress on the path. would it be possible that actions in this life, override kamma from previous lives, as we do not have control over our actions in previous lives? Yes. Certain types of karma can be kind of negated, so to speak. The more that we do wholesome actions and the less we do unwholesome actions, that the seeds of some of our past karma can be sort of nullified. Now, take, for example, somebody who attains sotapanna, right? Now, the mind has been being reborn hundreds and thousands or even millions of times over again before that. But by the attainment of sotapanna, at the very most, you would be born only 7 more lifetimes. So just the fact of attaining sotapanna wiped out, a large percentage of one's past karma. And if a person attained once returning, even in this life, then they had, eliminated so much more. So yes, the good actions, you can burn the seeds of. There's only a few actions that we cannot burn the seeds of, and that is like killing a mother or father, wounding a Buddha, killing an Arahant, or creating a schism in the order. These are sort of called the 5 or 6 heinous kind of karmas that you must come to fruition about. But other ones could be left by the wayside. Especially by attaining those states of the path, beginning with the stream entry, where that's where you purify your karma. Just going into meditation and staying in a jhana for 1 or 2 hours and coming out, doesn't necessarily purify your karma in that way. Is nibbana referred to as the unconditioned because it is not conditioned by kamma, as in an arahant does not commit any new kamma? Nibbana is called the unconditioned because it was never caused, it was never born or never dies. So there was nothing that caused it. And so because of that, yes, I said that an arahant doesn't create karma because there's no intention behind his actions. All of his actions are done kind of with a neutral, what's called kriya kamma or kiriya kamma, because there's no greed or hatred and delusion in the mind of the arahant. And there's no thoughts of I or me or mine. That's the main thing. And that's why it doesn't create the karma. And the actions they do are just sort of neutral. And they wouldn't do any negative type of actions anyway. Regarding the precept, is nature like plants, including no killing list, for example, removing weeds, creating karma? Well, traditionally, no, the way the Buddha explained it. For lay people, no. And this is also getting controversy between precepts of a lay person, precepts of a monastic. But anyway, the Buddha was very realistic, right? He knew that, we had to live in this world, and so he kind of drew the line. So the killing in the precept refers to sentient beings. Now people are going to argue and say, well, plants have sentient existence and so on. That may be to a certain extent, but the Buddha drew the line at the killing basically animals and human beings, of course. Let's say for us human beings, so killing animals, even small insects, because it's called a sentient being. So plants, people have to grow vegetables and they have to, build houses. And so lay people can, do that. But the respect for nature, one should do it, just for the need, not for wanton destruction. And so there's rules against the monks deliberately, destroying plants and so on. But it's not a serious offense. But anyway, so, the Buddha had regard for nature, of course, and the plants and so on are living things, but he drew the line, he, follows the middle path. So everything in the Buddhist teaching is following the middle path, avoiding the extremes. So, but anyway, basically killing plants, cutting grass and, cutting trees to build houses or whatever, those things, are not necessarily considered negative, serious negative actions. But when you remove weeds, when you create weeds, you're trying to give life to your vegetable garden or something else. But you should meditate. Just as the weed chokes off the life force of other plants, the weeds of the fetters and the hindrances in my mind are like weeds. Let me pull those weeds. Those are the kind of weeds we should pull out. The weed of ill will, resentment, stinginess, and all these, negative type of actions. How is intention and kamma linked? If a person doesn't want to do something that has bad karma, but forced to do it because their life depended on it, is the kamma still as significant? Kamma bases on the intention. So it's the amount of the strength of the greed, hatred, and delusion that's behind the intention is what creates the seriousness of the effect. So it's the same within a Western law, right? First degree murder, you premeditate it, you plan out, and you commit a murder. So you get the highest penalty. Now, you might kill somebody, but you didn't plan it out, it was accidental. That's a lesser sentence, right? Or if you're intoxicated and you kill somebody, it's even less than that. So like that, that's the intention. It's the intention that creates the seriousness of or the strength of the effect. Doesn't mean you're going to get off scot-free. There could still be some effects of your unintentional actions from others. They're going to get angry about it and so on, but it may not be that serious. Anyway, I think we've gone over the time now, so there's just one last question. Discuss kamma, purchasing, cooking meat. We won't get into that, but it's personally, I feel that if a person is going to be a Buddhist, they ought to, try being vegetarian, just because it helps you to have metta, so that you don't contribute to the demand for people, to kill animals in order to feed you. So there's some indirect karmic connection to that, but the Buddha didn't make it a mandatory for a person to be vegetarian. But anyway, that's a whole other discussion. Okay, friends, so I think that will be enough for this evening. And so, these are all things just to, consider and, to understand that the whole practice of Dhamma really is about learning how to purify the mind, purify those intentions that lead to these kind of actions that bring pain to us here and later too. follow us down the road many, many years. We experience the result of some of our actions. Okay, so let's take a little break to stretch your legs or take a drink of water, use the restroom, then we'll come back, do a few stretches, and then have our evening meditation. Okay? See you in a few minutes. Okay, friends, we'll do a few stretches to help get the mind more centered in the body. Create some piti, pleasant sensations in the body through deep breathing and the stretches. So just stand straight, relax your arms at the sides. Feel your feet pressing the floor. And begin some deep, slow breathing. Expand the lungs, abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs 3 or 4 seconds. Oxygenate the blood and feel the relaxing contractions of the out breath. And then coordinate these movements with that same deep, slow breathing. Repeating each one 3 times. So with the next in-breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, arch your lower back a little bit, and stretch upwards all at the same time. Feel the sensations. The out breath, turn the palms down, touch the top of the head. And again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, head back, arch the lower spine. Out breath, touch the top of the head. Once more, 3rd time, hold that upward stretch longer. Feel all the sensations. Release the fingers, the out breath, arms back to the sides. Relax, just close the eyes. Try to feel the inner body sensations. If you can't feel anything, just feel your feet pressing the floor. Just remember standing, standing, standing. Just let your thoughts come and go in the back of the mind. Just keep feeling, breathing body, sensations in the body. And the next in-breath, push up on the toes while raising the arms up like this. Face the palms toward each other about 6 inches apart and stretch. The out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels back to the floor. Use the breath to help lift and lower the body, like blowing up a helium balloon. The body lifts up, in breath. stretch. Out. Use the breathing to help lift and lower the body. In breath. Out. Relax. Gently close the eyes. Try to feel the subtle pulsations, other sensations in the body. Just feel where the clothing touches the skin on different places. Those are all just present moment sensations. Just remember standing, standing, standing. Next, we'll do side bending using both arms. So on an in-breath, raise both arms up. And keep the fingers and arms straight, close to the head. On the out-breath, bend over your right side as far as you comfortably can. Feel a stretch in the side. Keep the arms parallel to each other. In-breath, lift up. Then the other side, out-breath. In. Again to the right, out-breath. In. Out. Once more to each side, out-breath. In. Out. On the out-breath, lower both arms. Relax. As you feel your hands, subtle pulsations, magnetized feeling in your hands, being activated life force, oxygenated blood, prana energy. I like to call that the piti. It's the same kind of piti you can experience in the first jhana, that very pleasant, intense body, vibration, sensation. You don't want to think about anything else. It's so intense and nice. The mind just hangs out there in the present moment. Okay, one last exercise, the head turning. On an in-breath, turn the head to the right as far as you comfortably can. Try to look over your right shoulder or focus on some spot behind. On the out-breath, turning 180 degrees back to the left. Look over the left shoulder. In-breath to the right. Out breath left. In breath right. Left. On the next in-breath, let the head stop in the center. Close the eyes. Feel the whole body. Try to feel those subtle pulsations or other sensations all over the whole body. The feet underneath, the arms and hands at the sides, the chest, the head. Feel that organic aliveness of this breathing body. Present moment awareness. Okay, friends, come back to our seats and get ready for the sitting meditation. You have a bottle of water nearby, and take a drink of water. So I'm going to be turning off my video for this guided meditation. So you keep your attention focused inside. So just try to sit straight. If you're sitting in a chair, then have your feet flat on the floor. Try not to lean back on the back of the chair, but try to align your spinal column and your head in a straight line. Adjust your hands somewhere, so try not to move your hands during the meditation period. You have them resting on your legs or one hand on top of the other and held against your abdomen. Gently close the eyes, and first of all, just feel the weight of the body pressing the seat. Just feel where the buttocks and feet are pressing the floor. Feel how the knees are bent. Feel that earth element of that weight of the body pressing the floor, the earth vibration. And then feel your hands and fingers touching. Try to feel some of that residual subtle pulsation in your hands from the yoga exercise. And feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. And feel the head balanced on top of the neck. Keep the chin lifted up, level to the floor. Try to find the center of gravity of the head and spine over the hips. that tipping point where the body could either tip backwards or forward. Just mentally feel that straight and alert posture. That alert posture. Sitting upright, not slouched. Just mentally, just feel your head, the skin stretched over your face. Feel your lips touching together. The upper lip touching the lower lip. And feel the tongue laying in the mouth. Feel the teeth or gums in the mouth. So different sensations. Four element sensations, vibrations. Now feel the eyes resting in the socket and the eyelids stretched over the eyeball. You might see some light or color, patterns behind the eyes. Relax any eye movement. The point behind the eyes is also a natural kind of awareness point. From that point behind the eyes, try to feel the outline of the whole body. It's a general sense of the buttocks and feet underneath, hands and arms at the sides, head on top, touch of clothing on different places. Should be able to just feel that outline of the body in kind of one glance. In a state of awareness. And then begin taking a few deep, slow breaths to feel the long breathing, to feel the more dynamic, complete breathing. So after breathing in, hold the air in the lungs for a few seconds to feel the pause. And feel the relaxing, longer contraction of the out breath. Breathing in long, one knows one is breathing in long. Breathing out long, one knows one is breathing out long. And feeling the whole breath body breathing in. Feel the pause. And feeling the whole contracting out breath. And the brief pause. It's called experiencing the whole breath body. Breathing in. The whole breath body breathing out. And experiencing the body in the body means the breath body within the larger sitting body. It's cultivating this basic mindfulness, breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Now we're going to try to count the breaths from 1 to 10 again and build a better concentration. So if you can, still take some deeper, slower breaths to help you to stay concentrated. On the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. On the out breath, also count 1, contracting out breath. The next expanding in breath, count 2. Contracting out breath, 2. Next in breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. Out breath, 10. And just continue the counting, just stay with the feeling of the body. Just let the breathing return to its own uncontrolled rhythm. Keep your attention focused there on the abdomen or stomach area. Feel the residual or shorter breath. Try to feel the touch of the clothing against the skin of the belly or rib cage or chest. wherever you can feel it the easiest. Just use that as a touchstone to the present moment. Just knowing when the breath is coming in and knowing when the breath is going out. At the end of each out breath, feel the body grounded to the floor. Remember the body is sitting. Feel the outline of the sitting body. Just being aware of the body and the body. The breathing body within the larger physical body. That connection to the present moment. Try to maintain that continuous remembering, breathing in, sitting, breathing out, sitting, supplied and sustained thought to the present moment. You can remember just those thoughts, feeling them, you could attain the first jhana. With each out breath, feel the body and mind relaxing more and more. As the body lets go of the breath, the mind lets go of the past, the future, worrying, the hindrances. Just keeping the attention focused there in the middle of the breathing body. Pick up on the subtle vibrations of the breathing body, the piti, at the same time, be alert for thoughts or any hindrances arising. Observe them, note them, let go of them. In sitting, out, sitting, applied and sustained thought to the present moment. Tranquilizing the body and mind, breathing in, one trains oneself. Breathing out, tranquilizing the body and mind, one trains oneself. Just feeling subtler and subtler sensation. Balancing mindfulness and concentration. The concentration is the ability to keep remembering, feeling the breathing body. The mindfulness is the alertness for hindrances or other distractions, trying to pull you away from the breathing body. Be able to identify any hindrances that try to take over the mind, like desire, aversion. Sleepiness. If you have too many thoughts, or there's drowsiness, come back and take a few deep, slow breaths to help stay grounded, awake in the breathing body. We try to identify 5 aggregates as they manifest. This is material sensation. This is the feeling produced by a sensation, painful or pleasant. This is the perception, memory, names or labels of objects. This is the mental activity, various thoughts, desire, aversion. This is consciousness, ego consciousness. Hearing, seeing, tasting, smelling, touching consciousness. The mind is relaxed and centered enough and gradually opening up to the flow of impermanence. Seeing how quickly the various sensations are just arising and vanishing. Sensations from all different parts of the body, feet, hands, head, all points in between, maybe some aches or pains, unpleasant sensation, urges, rapidly coming and going. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Ongoing connection to the present moment. Everything else comes and goes in and through and around this breathing body. Breath by breath, moment by moment. Because of having a mind and body, the contacts arise, sensory contacts, producing feeling, giving rise to desire, aversion, thoughts about it, maybe some decision, karmic action, that then become further habits, strengthening the mental volition, either in a good way or unhealthy way. Stay awake, alert, moment by moment, breath by breath, straightening the posture, taking a few deep, slow breaths to re-energize. Sambe Sankara Anicchati. Sambe Sankara Dukkati. Sambe Dhamma Anattati. Yanda Panyaya Pasati. Atani Bindati Dukhi. Isamago Visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent, always changing. And all impermanent things, if clung to with ignorance, bring stress and suffering. And all the conditioned Dhammas, as well as the unconditioned, are without any owner or controller. They are not self, not I, me, or mine. When one understands these three characteristics with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And thus spoke the Buddha. And now, friends, let's spend the last few minutes just sending out metta vibrations to our own body and mind and to all other beings. And again, let's coordinate that with some deep, slow breathing. So begin taking some deep, slow breaths again. Hold the air in the lungs for several seconds to imagine or feel that oxygenated blood, like the oxygen going out to all the cells of the body. Is like sending metta to the cells of your own body, mind, nervous system. Feeling that relaxing contractions on the out breath. And just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that. Thinking like this to yourself. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. May I be free from excessive greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, and the pains and sufferings created by such unskillful thoughts and actions. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to practice the Dhamma, deepen my understanding of the Dhamma and meditation to free the mind from suffering and confusion. And continue to take several more deep, slow breaths to kind of send out these same kind of thought, feelings of metta to all other beings, especially as you're on each long out breath. You imagine these thought vibrations going out to your family members, friends, parents, relatives. And keep extending that further out to feel the whole ordinary person, strangers on the street. Imagine these vibrations going through the cities and towns, the countryside, sending these soothing metta vibrations to all beings. Begin with each out breath, spreading them further and further out, across the oceans to all the continents. and beyond. Just with the thought that may all living beings, wherever they might be, the rich or the poor, the weak or the strong, the well-known or the obscure, may all living beings be well, happy and peaceful, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings have the opportunity to hear the teachings of the Dhamma and to learn and practice meditation to help free their minds from confusion and suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. It's like a mantra reverberating throughout space. Well, peaceful, and wise. Okay, now for those who like, you can, to finish, join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times. Slowly do the chanting on a long out breath. And just end with a smile on your lips. Remember, whatever pain and suffering you might be going through, it could be worse. Could be worse. Count your blessings. Okay, friends. So, hope you had a peaceful meditation, insightful meditation. And hope your understanding of the law of karma helps to, yes, deepens, and especially how we're creating kamma from moment to moment with our thoughts, speech, and actions. Okay, so wish you a peaceful night and see you again, hopefully. And keep up your meditation during the week. The M&Ms, mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away. Namo Buddhaya.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. May you be well, Bhante.
Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.